Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining our onX office hours for October. We'll get rolling here in just a bit, but while we're waiting for everybody to get logged in and get situated, just a little bit of housekeeping. Your audio and video is turned off, so we can't see or hear you. If you do have a question, that's kind of what this whole class is about. It's a free form, ask me anything type question and answer class. Please drop them in the Q&A box down below. You kind of have a couple options for messages. You have the chat. Chat is great just for letting us know who you are, where you're from. If you want to send a message to another participant or something, chat's great for that. Chat is not good for questions, however. They're just more easily lost there. The Q&A box is the best place to send those. It's really set up for me to be able to go through and answer those questions and everything. So please start dropping your questions in the Q&A there. We are recording this class, so if you have to leave early and you want to watch the rest of it, or if you want to go back and re-watch a segment or something like that, we will send out an email tomorrow evening with the YouTube link so that you can go back and watch it whenever you want. Excuse me. And while we're on the subject of YouTube, all of our former master classes are uploaded to our YouTube channel. So you can go back and watch any of the old classes from the previous 2.5 years that we've been doing these. You just go to onX Hunt on YouTube, go to our playlists and find the Masterclass playlist. I think there's a couple hundred of them in there by now. And finally, we do have a giveaway towards the end of the class. We're going to be giving away some of our new onX Hunt hats. Not the one that I have on, but a little bit of a different one. So stick around for the end of the class. We'll drop the giveaway link in the chat there. So I think that's all of the housekeeping stuff. I don't think I forgot anything. Looks like some questions are rolling in, so we'll start answering those. Luke asked, is there a way to create a folder inside of another folder? Great question, Luke. Not at this time, there isn't. Folders are just kind of standalone. You're not able to nest them. That is a request we have gotten. I think that is something we will build out eventually. I know I personally would love to see, folders within folders so that I could have, maybe like my deer folder, and then I could break it down by year or by different hunt area or archery versus rifle or something like that. So it won't be this year that we will have folders within folders, but that is something I think we will be working towards in the future. Rick asked, is it possible to use onX in Newfoundland? Yes, it is, Rick. We do have some coverage in Canada currently. Our coverage as far as land ownership information in Canada is not as complete as it is in the States. So in Canada, we do have a lot of we've got the game management units or whatever they're called, in your province, the different hunt zones or districts. We've got a lot of the crown lands, things like that. What we are lacking in a lot of areas, and I know especially, I think on the East Coast especially, we don't have a ton of the private land information. Privacy laws and everything are totally different in Canada than they are in the US. In the United States, for the most part, it's public information. Here you go, we're able to put it in the app. Canada's quite a bit different. So we are working to kind of suss that out and figure out what do we need to do to be able to get this information. But you are able to use onX in Newfoundland. We've got aerial imagery, waypoints, tracker, all those features work throughout Canada. If you are curious about what the coverage looks like in Newfoundland, you should be able to start a trial up there. And if you've already used up your free trial or something like that, shoot us an email. Our customer support email is help@onxmaps.com. And just say, hey, I want to know if onX is going to suit my uses in Canada. Is it okay if I get, a week or 2 week trial or something like that? And they'll get you set up. That does remind me, one thing I did forget to mention in the housekeeping, folks. If you do have questions that pertain to something like your password or your billing or any account specific stuff like that, We don't quite have the bandwidth to dive into those types of issues tonight. So if you do have questions on when your renewal date is, updating a credit card, resetting a password, email us to help@onxmaps.com. And that's our customer support email. They'll be able to help you out. And that goes for any questions you have. If something comes up, after this class or at any time, shoot them an email. They're great folks. They'll get back to you generally within 24 business hours. Let's see. John asked, I have the premium one state for Oregon and have many offline maps built as well as waypoints and tracks. If I upgrade to premium 2 state, will I lose my current offline maps, waypoints, and tracks? You won't lose anything, John. When you change a membership level, it doesn't affect your waypoints, your tracks, your offline maps at all. All it does is it changes what layers you have access to. So you would just be adding an additional state. It's not going to affect anything that you have in Oregon. That will remain unchanged. Good question. Craig asked, how does the tracker function work? When I use it, it only tracks straight lines between points. So that's not how it's designed to work, Craig. It's designed to track, not straight lines between points. It's designed to ping your location. I forget how often it is. So I don't even want to speculate on how often it pings your location, because I'd probably get it wrong. But it is designed so that every kind of twist and turn that you take, it will track that. Sounds like there may be an issue with a location setting on your phone. Some phones will have like a power save mode or maybe a privacy setting where it's designed to not allow apps like onX to ping your location quite as often. A lot of times it's a battery setting. We see this fairly often, especially on like Android phones. So go in and make sure that onX has permission to see your location. And a lot of phones will have something like precise location. Try turning that on. That should improve the accuracy of the tracker there. Because it shouldn't just be, you start the track, you put it in your pocket, you walk a mile and you pull it out again and it shows a straight line, unless you walked a straight line, which maybe is happening, but probably not. So double check those settings there. Again, if you need help getting that to be more accurate, shoot our customer support an email, help@onxmaps. They'll be able to talk you through that in a little more detail than I can over the air here. Gary asked, does the tracker work without cell service? Yes, it does. So your GPS location on the app, I should back up. Your location on the app is determined by the GPS receiver in your phone. It doesn't use cell service. So your phone has a GPS chip similar to a handheld GPS unit. So you're able to track yourself and mark waypoints and do all of those things without service. Chris said, our app doesn't show the roads for our hunting unit. I don't know what to tell you, Chris, without having some more information. Is it not showing any roads? Is it not showing, I would guess it's got to be showing like county roads and city roads and things like that. If you're hunting in an area with Forest Service roads, if you're in a U.S. district or a unit with U.S. Forest Service land, go into the roads, trails, and rec folder and turn on the motorized roads and trails layer. That will turn the roads on there for you. If you're not in an area with U.S. Forest Service land, double check, make sure you've got the trails layers turned on and all of those things. Otherwise, if you give me some more information, I can maybe look into it a little more for you. It's just kind of hard to troubleshoot without having more info. Don says, I paid for the Elite subscription, but when I attempt to log in, it says trial version. What is necessary to get that corrected? 9 times out of 10, Don, when we hear of this issue, you're logging in with a different email address than you used to purchase the Elite membership. So double check your email. I know it sounds simple, but that really is one of the most common issues we run into. Double check the email you purchased under, double check and make sure you're logged in with that. A lot of times it's easy to get logged in with a different email or via like a Facebook login or an Apple login. So double check those things. If it seems like everything's right and it's still showing you as a trial, shoot us an email. Our customer support team has the ability to look at your account. I'm just not able to do that right now, and they'll be able to get that situated for you. Ian says, please address the level of accuracy for identified private property boundaries. So the accuracy of our private property boundaries is as accurate as what we get from the county or county equivalent. So when we get parcel data, typically we get it from the county, or some states will have like a statewide office that aggregates all that data and makes it available. So we get it typically from a tax assessor's office. And when they send it to us, they always send it with the disclaimer, these could be off. I've seen counties say anywhere from 20 yards up to 100 yards up to like 200 yards. Most cases, we find that our property boundaries are within, it's a matter of feet for most counties. 5 to 10 feet, you're going to be pretty close. That's about all the more accurate civilian GPS is really going to be anyways. We don't have access to the military GPS that will pinpoint you right on a spot. Civilian's going to be off a little bit. So generally speaking, within a matter of, I'll say even 10 yards, just to be safe. That's what our private property boundaries are. Does that mean every property boundary is that close? No. Some counties are better or worse than others. So if you do see something that appears to be off by quite a bit, you can go into the app and report an error to us. So you can tap on a parcel. It'll bring up an information card down below. One of the options, it will either say feedback or report an error. Depends if you're on web, Android, or iOS. There's a little bit of a slight difference there. That's where you can send that feedback. You can send that error report to us. That'll go to our geospatial team, our mapping folks. They will corroborate it with our source. They'll go and look at the data. They may contact the county government just to verify, yep, this is shifted to the east or shifted to the north or whatever. And then they'll work to get that corrected and send you an email when it has been corrected. Luke says, is there a way to turn on 2 folders at one time? Yep, you can have as many folders turned on at once as you would like. Let me pull up my map here so that I can demonstrate this better for you. So give me one moment to share my screen. So you can have, I'm trying to think on my personal device, I've probably got 10, 12 different folders, and I can have them all turned on at once. But if you pull up your map, I'm going to go into my content here. Here I have all my different folders. This is just a test account here, but I can have them all turned on. So there's a Minnesota deer camp folder. Here's an Iowa folder. Here's a deer folder. So you can have them all turned on if you'd like. I do that somewhat frequently. Well, I usually don't have them all turned on, but I usually have multiple turned on at once. So if you have them turned off, if you have them hidden, like this one, all you have to do is flip that switch there, and that will turn them on. So you can just turn them off and on by using that hide folder on map feature. Robert asked, how do I punch in coordinates to create a waypoint? So I'm going to demonstrate on my iPad here. So if you go to the far upper right corner, Robert, below where it shows my battery life, there is a magnifying glass icon. So if I tap that magnifying glass, that opens up the search. That's where you enter coordinates. So for example, I'm just going to type in 46.1234 Recommend you do this in decimal. Should have mentioned that from the start. Decimal's a lot easier and works a lot better in our search. So your second coordinate, your longitude, has to be a negative number. So it has to start with a minus. Otherwise, it's going to put you in the Eastern Hemisphere and you're going to be in Europe or Asia or something. So I'm going to go. The more decimal places you can put in, the more exact it's going to be. So if you have out to 8 decimal places, put 8 decimal places. I'm just going to put 4 for this demonstration. I'm going to hit search. Gives me one result, of course. If I tap on it, my map moves to those coordinates. I have this little menu down below that shows the coordinate. If I had this state turned on, it would tell me more information about who owns the land. But if you see down below, there's a button there that says Add Waypoint. I hit Add Waypoint. You can customize it if you want. I'm just going to hit Save. And then there is my waypoint on those exact coordinates. So you go through the search, type in the waypoint, it'll bring you right there. Craig asked, can onX be used to navigate to a specific waypoint? Yes, it can. So there's multiple ways you can do it. I'm just going to move my map back to my location here. So let's say I wanted to get to this brown mule deer waypoint I have here in this field over by the Missoula County Fairgrounds. I can see where my blue dot is, kind of in the upper right quadrant of the map. So to navigate there, I could simply say, I've got to walk south and then west and start walking, and it would, I could follow my dot as I'm walking there, kind of like you used to do on a paper map, right? You can also tap on the waypoint and then tap on Go to Waypoint down at the bottom. That's going to draw a line and tell me exactly how far away I am and what direction I need to go. So in town, this is a little different, but I use this frequently out in the mountains or out on the prairies, where I will often run it to like a tree stand when I'm deer hunting, or run it to my truck when I want to go home at the end of the day. So I'll use the Go to Waypoint. Then I will tap my location button twice. And now as I move my tablet, my map's going to rotate. And so now I can see whether I'm on track, whether I'm heading the right direction without having to have that waypoint on the map, because I've got that line, right? So now I can tell, yep, I'm heading the right direction. Oh, I need to head left. I need to head right. So that's another way to do it. And let me close out of this. You can also tap on a waypoint. And again, at the bottom here, there's a button that says driving directions. So if you put a waypoint on a trailhead or a parking area or somebody's house, whatever you want, you can tap driving directions, and then we'll kick you over to Apple or Google Maps, depending on which one you want to use and what platform you're using. And then that will do the turn-by-turn, street navigation, like a lot of people are familiar with. It will kick you over to Google, and it will, or Apple, and it will take you to that spot. We are kind of working on being able to do this all within onX without kicking you out to Apple or Google Maps. But for right now, that's a pretty good way to navigate to a spot. I use it very frequently, where it takes those coordinates and kicks you over there. And they do a pretty good job of on-street navigation. Then once you get there, we'll take over, once you're off the pavement, once you're out hunting. Rick said, if I have to zoom in on maps to be accurate, how accurate will it be if I mark a spot with my watch? So Rick, there's a couple different ways you can mark a waypoint within the app. And if you're using like an Apple Watch to mark your waypoint, it's basically replicating the Mark My Location feature on the app. So it's going to mark where you are currently. So that doesn't matter how zoomed in you are, because it's placing a spot where you are. So if I go into Tools and hit Mark My Location, that's basically what you're going to do with the watch. So you don't have, it doesn't matter how zoomed in you are. Now, if we're talking about I'm wanting to mark a waypoint where I'm not in the app, if I was trying to put one here where it says Elk Mountain in the center of my screen, I hit add waypoint. I can get pretty good. But if I zoom in, now I can get even more specific. So that's what we mean when we say you have to zoom in to be accurate. That's talking about manually placing a waypoint at a spot where you're not currently located. When you're using Mark My Location, which is what you're doing from your smartwatch, that's just going to place it where you are currently located. So I hope that helps. Hope that makes sense. I'm going to delete that waypoint. Dennis asked, I want to measure the distance between where I am to the distant highest point. How do I do it? A couple ways to do that, Dennis. One way, let's say I want to see how far from me to Mount Sentinel. That's one of the major mountains here around Missoula, Montana. How far is it? One thing you can do is the 2-finger line distance tool. This one is going to be, if you don't need an extremely accurate measurement, this one's going to be pretty good and fast. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of zoom in as close as I can while keeping my location and the peak of Mount Sentinel in view on my map. I'm going to place one finger on my location, or as close as I can get, and one finger on the top of Mount Sentinel. So I'm pretty close there. And it's telling me 2.32 miles. So that's one way you can measure that. So you can do that, measure any two distances. Just by placing your 2 fingers on the map, it'll show you the distance between those 2 fingers. Like I said, it's not the most accurate, but it'll get you pretty close. If I want to be more accurate, I can zoom in on the peak of Mount Sentinel. I'm going to add a waypoint. I'm going to save it. So now I've got this waypoint on the peak of the mountain. I'm going to tap on it and hit Go To Waypoint. Now that's drawing a line from the peak, from that waypoint to my location, 2.32 miles. And then as I move, if I were to start walking due east, I would see that mileage start to decrease as I got closer to Mount Sentinel. So hope that answers your question, Dennis. Let's see. John asks, can you share tracks with another hunter in your hunt party? Yep, you can share any markup that you have on the map. So this is kind of a test account. I don't have any tracks saved, unfortunately, but I'll demonstrate how you share on a waypoint. Just know, John, that the order of operations for sharing on a waypoint is the exact same as it is for a track. So just pretend this waypoint's a track here. I tap on the waypoint or track. Along the bottom, I tap the share button. You can share with a link or share nearby. So share nearby would be if I'm like right next to a buddy, and this would only work iOS to iOS or Android to Android. It's basically the same as airdropping. If you've ever airdropped a picture or something to somebody, it does it via Bluetooth. So it's nice when you don't have cell service. So you can share that way if they're close. Otherwise, share with a link. This is kind of our classic share method. We've had this for a number of years, since before I worked at onX. So if you hit share with link and hit next, then it's going to open up where you can select to share via text message, share via email. You can just copy the link and paste it into a Facebook message or Instagram or something. This is a tablet that doesn't have cell service, so it's not giving me a message option, a text message option. But that's how you share any markup, whether it's a track, a waypoint, a line distance, and an area shape. Most people will text message it to somebody. So that's how you do that. Drew asked, any plans for LiDAR? Yes, we are looking into acquiring that and getting it within the app. Again, probably won't be this hunting season. Generally speaking, during the months of September through December, we know all kinds of hunting occurs outside of those dates, but that's the majority of hunters in the U.S. are hunting within those 3-4 months. We try not to do any sort of major releases during those months because nothing's more important than our app being stable and performing, at its best during the hunting season. If you know anything about software development, anytime you introduce a new feature, you're writing new code, there's the potential for something to be affected and something to go wrong. So we kind of put those major updates on hold during these months, but yes, we are looking into LiDAR, Drew. That's something we're working on soon. Let's see, Scott said, along the same line as first question, folders. There needs to be a way of flagging waypoints in main folder when they are added to a personal folder so that in the future if certain waypoints have already been added to folders or not, especially important on properties you return to year after year. So what you can do, Scott, if you're not sure if a waypoint has been added to a folder, you can click on it. So I'm going to click on this kind of purple bear icon right here. And it tells me what folders it's been added to. So it says folders, bear. If I had this in multiple folders, it would tell me what folders it's all been added to. There may be a better way that we can kind of flag that to make it a little bit more obvious. That's something I'll definitely run by some of our designers and stuff. But for right now, if you're uncertain if a waypoint's been added to a folder or not, just tap on it and it'll tell you if it's in a folder or not. If there's nothing showing under folders, then it's not been placed in a folder yet. Dennis says, how do I share my location with my spouse when I go hunting? So right now we don't have like a live buddy tracker feature where somebody can see your location in real time. Excuse me, I'm gonna take a drink of water here. Got something stuck in my throat. So I was saying, Dennis, we internally refer to it as like a buddy tracker, where you'd be able to see other people within the app. It is something we're working on. It will only work when you have cell service, because the cell phone has to be able to communicate. What I would do in your case, if you want your spouse kind of to know where you're going, beforehand, if you know where you're going to be, share a waypoint with them. Say, hey, this is where I'm going to park the truck, or this is the tree stand I'm going to, or the duck blind, or whatever, so that they kind of know the general area you're going to be. If you're out in the field and you have service, which, some places I hunt personally, I have service, some places I don't, but in places I do, I can park the truck, or when I get to my glassing point or wherever, I can mark a waypoint and send it to somebody at home. Say, hey, this is where I'm hunting this afternoon, just in case, if you don't hear from me by 10 o'clock or whatever, maybe send for help or something. So that's the best way right now, in my opinion, is to send a waypoint, share a waypoint with them so that they at least have it on their end to know the general area you're going to be. Kevin said, at times when navigating, onX shows me looking or hiking 180 degrees off. So this is an issue with the compass on your phone, Kevin. I've seen this on my iPhone multiple times. So onX does not, we're software, right? So we take the information that the hardware is giving us. So your phone has a compass within it. iPhones, I know at least, have a native compass app. So if you look through all the apps that come on your phone when you buy it, one of them's a compass app. We will show the same reading that compass app is showing. We're taking that same data and we're just displaying it on the map here versus that compass app is showing you, the compass with the degrees and like a compass needle. And so that compass can get off sometimes, especially we're seeing this a lot more with magnets. So we're seeing a lot more magnets used on hunting clothing, magnetic bino harnesses, things like that. That will affect your compass from time to time. It doesn't seem to be all the time or every time, but we have seen, especially like those binocular harnesses are getting pretty popular, where that magnet can affect the internal compass on your phone. So double check that, or magnets on a phone case. I haven't noticed it, but I have an adapter to connect my phone to my spotting scope that utilizes magnets. I haven't noticed issues with that yet, but I could see that it would make a difference. What you can do to remedy this, Kevin, is to recalibrate the compass on your phone. So if you go into your privacy settings on your phone, at least on an iPhone, that's where it is, you can recalibrate the compass. I've had to do that, and sometimes you have to do it a couple times before it finally like clicks and that compass in the phone recalibrates. Android, there's a way to do that there as well. If you want those steps written out, you can shoot us an email and we can send you those in-depth, because it's a lot of clicks. The iPhone, it's like 6 different clicks to get in there. But our customer support team can help walk you through how to calibrate that. Let me see. Rick asked, how updated are maps? Depends what you mean, Rick, by maps. Parcel data gets updated at least once a year, and some counties are much more often than that. So as far as parcel data goes, it's as often as the county updates. We try to mirror their update schedule. So some counties update every month, some counties update once a year. So if they only update once a year, that's about as updated as we can be. As far as imagery goes, we're kind of in the process right now of bringing on new imagery providers. Unfortunately, there's only like 3 or 4 of them in the entire country, and most of them prioritize where people are, because that's what makes them money, right? So most imagery providers prioritize urban areas, because that's where the most customers are. Not so great for a hunting app, right? We don't necessarily care so much about the urban areas. We care more about the rural areas. So our goal is to have every state updated to within 3 years. I'll tell you, we're not there yet. I know some states are older than that, but that's our goal we're working towards, is to be within 3 years or so. Most states, I believe, are within 3 years, but I know like my home state of Minnesota is older than that. So those ones that are older are at the top of the list to get updated. It is just a little difficult with not very many imagery options. So we have to kind of take what we can get. All right, let's see. Let's see. Man, there's some lengthy questions. All right, I see some people ask a question and then answered their own a couple later, so I want to make sure I'm not answering questions that have already been answered. Here's a good one. Rick asks, is there an update on when SIG rangefinders will be added to onX? So what Rick's talking about there is a couple of companies, Loophole and Sig Sauer, have integrated some rangefinders with onX, meaning you're able to use their rangefinder to range a target, and then onX will place a waypoint on that exact spot. So I've got good news for you, Rick. SIG rangefinder integration is live now. So if you have a SIG rangefinder that is compatible with their BDX app, you can use that app in conjunction with onX to place remote waypoints on the map. I don't have the complete list of compatible rangefinders because they've got a bunch of them. On the Loophole side, it's the RX 5000. It's a brand new one they just came out with. I know that because it's the one Loophole one that is integrated or is compatible. But as far as the SIGs, Rick, if it works with the BDX app and has that Bluetooth capability, it should work with onX. Let's see, Tom asked, is there any way to identify path, public access to habitat properties in South Dakota? Yes, there is. And let me pull up my South Dakota layers here. So I'm going to go into my map layers, turn on South Dakota, go up to that South Dakota folder. See, I'm going to turn on all the layers. The one you need to have turned on, Tom, is the SD walk-ins layer. And let me find, I should mark one of these because I get a question on this almost every class. So those walk-in areas will all have this black box with red dots in it. And not all of these are in the path program, but I know I just found one. And I know we are working on a specific layer for this. Oh, let me see. Nothing like being put on the spot and not being able to produce. So, moral of the story, Tom, they are a bit difficult to find because there is so much CREP and regular walk-in access in South Dakota. I know a lot of these path areas are kind of by Aberdeen. If I knew my South Dakota geography better, might help. There's one. There we go. So they will have this orange path logo on there, or that icon. So this is a Conservation Reserve Enhancement Program, or CREP property. They're also part of the PATH program. So if you tap on that account, or tap on that parcel, I should say, you can learn more. It'll tell you, what programs it's enrolled in. Like I said, I believe we are working with South Dakota Game Fish and Parks to create a path-specific layer, but for right now, it lives within the walk-in access and it's in the SD walk-ins layer. So you have to have that turned on, and then you do have to kind of zoom around a bit to look for those path properties. Justin asks, do you have plans to offer a family plan? That's something that's been talked about, Justin. I don't have any more information than, yes, it's being talked about. I can't say what way, that domino will fall, but it is something we are looking into. So a lot of times with stuff like this, it's the case of the squeaky wheel gets the grease. So the more people that are asking about a family plan, the more we see interest in it. That might get the ball rolling a little bit. Ron asks, how do you turn on the topographic feature on onX? Good question. So I'm going to move out of South Dakota just to an area with a little bit more elevation difference just to highlight this a little bit better. So let me just go. So here we are. We've got a satellite map. You can't really tell the terrain very much. In the lower right-hand corner of the map, there's a button that says SAT and 2D. That's your base map button. So if I tap on that button, that's where I can select my different base maps. So if I want a topographic map, instead of having satellite selected, I'm going to tap on the topo base map. So there I get more of your traditional topographic map. So you can get satellite, you can get topo. What I use most of the time is the hybrid map, so that I still get the satellite imagery, but you can still see those topographic lines. 90% of the time, that's what mine is used for, especially when I'm out in the field. I'll use the topo once in a while when I'm doing some scouting and really looking to hone in on certain terrain features. But you can change those at any time just by going into your base map button there, Ron. Good question. Gary asks, how to select multiple waypoints so you can do something like deleting them or changing their icon. So right now, Gary, we don't have the ability to do like a mass change. Unfortunately, you do have to do them one at a time if you're trying to change the color or the icon. We don't have the ability to like select 5 of them and change them. If I do go into my content and hit select, I can select multiple waypoints. So I've selected all 3 of those waypoints. I could delete all 3. So again, if I back up, I'm going to move this back to satellite just so it's a little easier to see as well. So if I go to my content, tap the select button, and I select those 3 waypoints, I can add them all to a folder. I can share them all. I could delete them all. But I'm not able to change their icon all at once. So kind of half answers your question. I believe in the future we will be able to do a mass edit, so you could change the color or change the icon, just not there yet. Steven said, while mapping, when I stop and pause, and if I keep moving while on pause, it will show a line. Is there a way to delete or erase that line caused by pausing? I'm not really familiar with what you're describing, Stephen. I haven't seen that. So I assume what you're talking about is you're running a track, you stop, and you pause the track, but then keep moving. It shouldn't be drawing a line while it's paused. I know I had this, a couple weeks ago. I was out hunting and I stopped to, I think, have a snack and glass a little bit, and then I kept moving and forgot to start my track again. And then when I resumed it, it just drew a straight line to where I was. That's how it's supposed to work. If you could get a screenshot or like a recording of this, like I said, I've never heard of it before where it's paused, but it's still tracking you and still drawing a line. That would be super helpful. It sounds like a bug to me. And the best way to get that remedied would be if you can get a recording of it and then email it to help@onxmaps.com. That will help us get that fixed. In the meantime, if you do have a portion of a track you want to delete, you can trim a track. So this feature was created. Again, I apologize, I can't demonstrate it here because I don't have any tracks on this account. But we do have a feature for, if you're like me, you get back to the truck and you forget to stop your track, and now you have a track running on the highway all the way home. Once you save it, you can tap on the track and there will be an option there that says trim track, where you can trim off from either end. You could trim off the back half of the track. So I've done this where I've tracked myself all the way back to Missoula down the interstate when I didn't mean to. I can trim that portion of the track back to where I was parked or to wherever I want it to end, and then save it and cut that portion off. So that might be helpful to you there, Stephen. Let's see, Kyle asked, what's the best feature that most people don't use? That's a good question, Kyle. And the thing is, what we find typically is most people are only using like 10% of the app. Most people don't utilize all the different layers and tools, so it's hard for me to nail down just one. A couple that come to mind are wind on a waypoint and compass mode. So wind on a waypoint was designed kind of with the tree stand hunter in mind, but is really applicable no matter what you're hunting. There are very few hunting pursuits where wind doesn't play some kind of a factor. Whether it's what way is my scent blowing, or what way are the ducks going to come into my spread, or where should I start hunting with my dogs so that they're downwind of all the pheasants. So wind on a waypoint, let me just we'll use this one at the top of Mount Sentinel here. So you mark a waypoint on a spot. Again, all of my tree stands have a waypoint on them, and I mark wind on a waypoint. glassing knobs, duck blinds, fields where I commonly, pheasant hunt or upland bird hunt, I'll put a waypoint there. Then I tap on the waypoint. It brings up this information card. If I scroll up a bit, there's an option there that says wind direction. If I tap on that, I have two options. I can have it show me the current wind or set an optimal wind. So let's just pretend this is a tree stand and I know I only want to hunt it on west winds. So I'm going to select northwest, west, and southwest from this kind of pie chart here. I just tapped on them and they'll light up. I'm going to hit apply, and it'll take a little bit of time for it to pull the weather information. But once it does, it's telling me, there's not really any wind. What little wind there was out of the west. So this would be good hunting right now, and it'll be lit up green. If it was out of the east, it would be red because it's bad. And then what you can do, if I go into my tools and click on wind calendar, and it'll take a little bit of time to load and pull all this weather data. But all of my waypoints where I have marked an optimal wind will be shown there, and it'll show me the wind at different times of day. So since Tuesday is already almost over, we're going to click on Wednesday. It'll show me at sunrise, midday, and sunset what's the wind forecasted to do at those times. So this really helps defeat that paralysis by analysis of what stand should I sit in, where should I go. If you've got 10 different stands and they all have a different optimal wind, or again, this could work for anything. It could be 10 different pheasant fields, 10 different duck blinds, 10 different glassing points. You can then put that optimal wind on all of them and then take a look, and it can forecast out. Maybe you're not able to hunt till Saturday. Well, what's the wind going to be Saturday morning? I want to get out for a deer hunt. I've got 4 that have a good wind. Really helps narrow it down so that I'm not sitting in a stand that's no good for the wind. So that's one feature. The other one is our compass mode. I'll go through that quick. So if I tap on, I'm just going to show you, there's a couple ways to get to it. One of the easiest is to tap on tools and then tap on compass mode. So that's going to make your map look like this. On the right-hand side, in the lower right corner, I'm going to tap the button that looks like a rangefinder. Now what I can do is, if I don't have one of the new rangefinders that integrates with onX, which I personally don't, I've got a SIG rangefinder that's 7-8 years old, still works great. I can range a target, and let's say I've got a buck that's bedded, and I range it and it's 250 yards away. I can point my phone in that direction. I can drag this little slider, this little line, down to 250, tap the waypoint icon, and mark a waypoint on that spot where that deer is bedded. Now, if I want to stalk in closer, I have a landmark to aim for, or if 250 is within my comfortable shooting range, I'm rifle hunting, I'm just waiting for the buck to stand. That buck stands up, I shoot him. Now I have a waypoint to start my blood tracking from. So that's another super useful feature. You kind of got the wind on a waypoint we built predominantly with the whitetail folks in mind, but again, works for everybody. And then we've got the compass mode that I think works for all sorts of different big game hunters. Let's see, Lee says, I hunt a farm and add waypoints, trails, deer sign, etc. The map gets busy. How do I manage the waypoints or clear the waypoints to get a clear map? I'm afraid I will lose my waypoints. So what I would do on that one, Lee, is utilize folders. Personally, that's what I do. I've got, on my personal account, 1,400 waypoints, something like that. So my map gets pretty busy as well. I would group, if you're hunting this one farm, I would choose some different kind of themes for your waypoints. Maybe you have a folder for stands and blinds. Put all your stand and blind waypoints in there. Maybe you have a folder for deer sign. So all the rubs and tracks and scrapes and everything else that you see, deer sightings, put those in a folder. If you have one for trails or different tracks, entry and exit routes, put those in a folder. This is just one example. Do whatever makes sense to you. A lot of different ways to skin a cat. And then once you have them in folders, if you look at my map here, you see I have this one, it's titled Minnesota Deer Camp, was just an example one I created. You can hide that folder. And then those waypoints aren't deleted. You can see they're all still there. They're just hidden. They've got that eye with the slash through it showing to the right of each waypoint. You can bring them back by one by tapping on that eye. You can also unhide the folder, and that will bring them back. So that's what I do, Lee, personally. I'm hunting a variety of different areas, but I'm hunting a bunch of different species. So I have an elk folder, a deer folder, a turkey folder, etc. So in the fall, when I'm not hunting turkeys, I hide that folder, just so it's not messing up my map and blocking my view of the waypoints that I want to see. That would be my opinion of how to best manage that, Lee, is to utilize those folders. Let's see. Matthew asked, is there a way to lump often used layers together into a group that could be turned on and off for all layers in the group? For instance, if I like to see the slope layer and the timber cuts and historic wildfires all together and toggle between them, viewing them and the basic satellite imagery. Right now there's not, Matthew, but that is something I have thought of as well, of an easy way to toggle off either one layer or a group of layers. I've been doing a lot of scouting using the crop folder or the crop layers lately, and that does obscure my map a little bit. So it'd be nice to be able to just easily toggle that one on and off. I definitely see the use case, like you said, for slope, timber, historic wildfire, and be able to turn that on and off. So that's something I will, next time I get a chance to bend the ear of one of our engineers, I'll make sure to mention that to them. That sounds like a super useful feature. All right, let's see. Go through some other questions here. A question about switching states. So if you have a premium membership or a 1-state or a 2-state, you can switch states. Typically that is limited to 1 per year. So if you have South Dakota this year, but you're going to be hunting North Dakota instead, we can switch that for you. If you have the 2-state membership, you have Oregon and Idaho, and you want to switch one to Washington in the future, you can do that. We're just not able to typically switch that back within the same year. If you're commonly hunting 3, 4, 5 states, then that elite membership is what you're going to want to go with if you're commonly hunting a bunch of different states. Let's see. Some of these I've answered. Another question, what's your favorite feature on onX you haven't talked about yet? That compass mode I really like. Last year it didn't necessarily help me get a mule deer, but it helped me find it a lot faster because I had a waypoint exactly where it had been bedded to start my blood tracking. So compass mode's one of my favorite features. Right now, I'm using the crops data quite a bit. So if I turn that on, the U.S. crop distribution, this weekend in Montana is our pheasant and pronghorn opener. And I've got a pronghorn doe tag, but I also have a German wirehair that's fantastic at hunting pheasants. So we're going to go out and try to do both. So I have been utilizing the crop folder quite a bit to try to find, a lot of antelope like to hang out in alfalfa fields. So I've been looking for some of those. So there's an example of some alfalfa. And this yellow should be corn. That's, pheasant magnet as long as it's been harvested. And this is all private land that I don't necessarily have access to, but here's a state section that is planted in winter wheat. Maybe that would be a good spot to go after all kinds of game birds, sharp-tails, Hungarian partridge, maybe some pheasants. So I've been using the crop folder a lot lately. I also like the timber layers, especially if I'm in, back home in Minnesota where I grew up. We deer hunt and grouse hunt the northern part of the state. So that young aspen forest is great for grouse and woodcock hunters. Sometimes just seeing the difference between these are pine trees and these are maple trees and these are oak trees, that's useful. So that's kind of what's top of my mind right now, Justin. If you'd asked me in 2 months, I'd probably have a different feature that I really liked. But and going back to that wind on a waypoint, even I don't use that enough. But that wind on the waypoint and the wind calendar, I think is pretty slick. Let's see, Peter asked, for offline maps, how can you only see the map you are interested in versus seeing many offline map outlines in the same general area? Example, outline maps have 4 downloaded maps appear and you only care about one of the map's outlines. So right now, there isn't really a way to show just one map. Part of the reason for that, Peter, is you can imagine if somebody didn't realize that they had some of those outlines hidden, the panic it might cause for some folks, and the phone calls we would get from people saying, man, I had all these offline maps and you deleted them all, when in reality they maybe had just hidden them. We actually see that a fair bit with waypoints that people have hidden right now. So right now, there isn't a way to hide the outlines you don't want to see. The best tip I can offer for finding the right offline map is to give them names and names that mean something to you. So I have a bunch here that say like test, or they don't have any custom name at all. It just shows the date and time. It's because this is a test account. But what I typically do is I name my maps either for like the nearest city. So I have one Missoula, and then Missoula North, Missoula South, Missoula East, Missoula West, or I name them for a unit. So unit XYZ, I know I've got a map saved for that unit, or it's for, maybe along a river corridor and I name it Missouri River or something like that. So that, I have one here in Glacier. I know that's Glacier National Park. Then I can hone in on the one that I really want to see. So we're not able to do exactly as you described there, Peter, but hopefully, some of the tips there will help you kind of get to where you want to go. So Luke asks, speaking of wind on a waypoint, where is onX collecting the weather information? I'm not able to give the exact name of our data source, but we do have a national weather data source where we collect that weather data. We bring that weather data in from weather stations all over the place. And then what's unique with onX is we will take the data from the 3 nearest weather stations and then extrapolate out what the weather is most likely doing at the spot you're interested in. So previously, we would pull the data kind of from the nearest weather station. Okay, so it would say, I've got a waypoint, this is the wind, the nearest weather station is showing this. Now we pull data from 3 so that it's more accurate. So you can see, this weather station is saying this weather station is saying that weather station is saying that. Based on the terrain, based on the topography, what is the wind most likely doing at this spot? And I'm probably as critical of our app as anybody, and I have found it to be very accurate. Is it always 100%? No, because the only way to be 100% what the weather is doing at a certain spot is to have a weather station there, right? So the wind might be slightly off. It's maybe more of a southeast than a south. I haven't found it to be off more than, 10, 20 degrees, maybe. And the wind speed is generally within a couple miles an hour. So I hope that answers your question a little bit. let's see, we are at an hour, but there's a bunch of questions in here. So what I'm going to do, I am going to post the giveaway link in the chat so that folks that need to run can get entered. And what I'm going to do for a bit here is I'm just going to turn the chat off just so that the link there, my message is at the bottom so that everybody can find it. So you're not going to be able to chat here for a little bit, just so that everybody can get entered. We're giving away some onX hats tonight. We're going to give away 10 of them. You do have to enter by midnight tonight. So if you're watching this on the recording, the giveaway has closed, but we do a giveaway at pretty much every class. So join us for a future one. We'll let that sit there for a bit. Some people, some phones won't let you click on that link. So you may have to type it in manually or copy and paste it into a browser. So if your phone isn't, sometimes it's like a security setting. It won't let you click on the link. So maybe try copy and paste, or, I mean, if you have to grab a pen, write it down and enter after the webinar. Let's see. We'll try to answer a few more questions here as long as people are interested. Roy asked, will landscape mode be something that will be available so my screen can rotate and use the add-on keyboard for my tablet? Good question, Roy. That is a request we get quite a bit. I can't make any promises. It is something I would like to see. The trouble with doing landscape mode is it's not just a simple thing for us to build. You're kind of having to, it's a lot of engineering work. And we do try to prioritize features that are used by the greatest number of people. We just have a relatively small number of customers that use tablets. Not that it's unimportant. It's not what I'm saying at all. But it's hard sometimes to say, yep, we're going to build landscape mode when it is a very involved process, when we could also use engineering time on other things. So it is something I think we will get eventually, Roy. But I'm not going to promise you that it's going to be this year or early next year or anything like that. But again, squeaky wheel gets the grease. The more people that request it, the more likely it is to get bumped up on the priority list there. Let's see. So we talked about LiDAR earlier. Justin had sent in a question, what is LiDAR and what will it do for the app? Oh, I know LiDAR is an acronym. I'm not going to try to say it right now. I don't remember exactly what LiDAR stands for, Justin, but it's basically a way of kind of scanning the ground, scanning the terrain, and providing a super realistic, a super in-depth view of what the terrain and topography looks like. So we talked about, if I go to my topo map here, a LiDAR view of this would be much more detailed. So right now you can kind of get a sense of what the terrain looks like. LiDAR just is like topo on steroids. So it will give you a better picture, more in-depth of what the ground looks like. I mean, you can even see like boulders on it. It's pretty sweet. So whereas topo, is not super useful. I'm going to zoom in on kind of northern Minnesota, the basic area where we deer hunt. There's not a whole lot of topography change here, right? So it looks pretty flat, but there's a lot more terrain change in that area when you're actually boots on the ground, and terrain change that matters. So LiDAR would better show those terrain changes, not only in mountainous regions, but in flatter country as well. All right, so I know there's a couple questions I wasn't able to get to tonight, but we are a bit over an hour here, so apologies if I wasn't able to get to your question. Do send us an email. Our email address is help@onxmaps.com. Again, I know I'm biased, but our customer support team is the best in the business. They're all US based. Most of them are in Montana, and they will get you an answer within 24 business hours. So if you send us an email tonight with an issue or a question, you can expect an email back tomorrow sometime. You can also give us a phone call. Monday through Friday, we have live phone support. I believe our hours are currently 9 to 4 Mountain Time. Our phone number is 406-540-1600. If you prefer to contact us that way, you can do that as well. And do want to encourage everybody, take a look at our upcoming master classes. And we do have a survey at the end of this class. Once I close the webinar, you'll see that survey there. There is a question in there asking what you'd like to see in the future. So I really want to make these classes important for what you want to learn and what you want to know more about. If we've got to bring in experts or different types of folks that have different expertise, we'll do that. So let us know what you'd like to see in the future. And also double check, go to our Masterclass playlist on our YouTube. Like I said, we've been doing this for a couple of years, so there's a good chance we have some classes there that will match up with your specific interests. We have all kinds of ones we did in the past on how to scout for pheasants, quail, ruffed grouse, ducks, geese. We've got archery whitetail stuff, rifle and archery elk stuff, and mule deer, spring bear hunting, dog training, all kinds of different things. So check that out. And once again, just want to thank everybody for joining me. Hope to see you on the next one. And if you haven't been out hunting, I hope your season ahead is successful. And if you have been out hunting, I hope you're still hunting. I hope if you're tagged out, you're able to find something else to chase this fall, because this is my favorite time of year. I love October, November, and we're just getting into the heart of it. So good luck to everybody. Stay safe. Have a good evening.